I came to the journey initially because I had spiraled into depression. I was smoking about 60 cigarettes a day and drinking like a fish. I am quite proud of it at the time. And the depression showed up in a way that I'm a very, I would say, intelligent, bright, pretty sparky girl with a lust for life, and that totally had fallen away. And I couldn't even get out of bed and decide the clothes to wear on some days. It just was that bad for me, and I knew I needed help. I knew something was wrong, and I knew I had an issue. And the issue was of a sexual abuse, a rape that had happened when I had been traveling about 2 years before. And so I knew I needed to free myself from this. And when that event happened, it wasn't like anyone gave me a manual of knowing how to cope with life after that. I think naturally what happens is a closure happens. And there's a way in which you learn that who you are is not okay. Because if who you are has this happen to them, then there's something innately wrong with you. And I carried a very deep, low self-esteem, low self-respect. And it played out in many ways that after the violation and actually childhood abuse that had happened, to where I would fight life. I needed to protect myself. I was a girl who was an independent girl who didn't need a man in her life to get on with life. And there was no way that you could be vulnerable or sexy or sensitive or sensual, because that kind of person could be raped. And so I lived my life almost as a woman fighting life, or trying to do it independently and proving that I didn't need anything. And I found myself spiraling into depression. It's like my whole life just closed down, and I didn't know how to break free. I didn't know how to stop carrying this burden with me. And the person I was turning into was not me. And so it was the journey that liberated me from that. And forgiveness played a huge part in the role of the rape and the ability to be able to free myself. It was the key to it. And ironically, forgiveness from myself in what it took place was I had to forgive the violator and the perpetrator, which I did. That wasn't easy necessarily, you know. And yet, in the journey process, it does make it so simple that when I was able to just come from a place and understand, an understanding of why the action took place, and when I could deeply, from a deeper place inside of myself, understand that, it's like, oh, I could totally forgive. And ironically, I actually had to forgive my mother in terms of this, which someone may think, well, what's that got to do with anything? But the rape actually happened when I was in Thailand, overseas, and I was in hospital for 5 days, and it was almost as if in my deepest, darkest hour of need, my mother didn't come out, even though I told her not to. I told her not to come out, but every part of me was saying, please come. And it's almost as if that event solidified a whole blame game that I had with my mother, that my mother's never there for me, my mother never, helps me, this whole story. And I could push that and blame my mother. And so ironically, the harder thing to forgive was my mother. Yet when forgiveness happened for the violator towards the violator and towards my mother, it was in the forgiving that the freedom was here. For me, I look at what happened to me as a gift, and I see the rape as the thing that made me turn inside myself turn the flashlight on inside. And in that, I feel like a woman. I feel comfortable in my skin. I feel comfortable in my body. How that shows up, I feel more connected, more liberated, more free. An expression of who I am, and truthfully, has led my life to be a picture that is beyond my wildest dreams, beyond my imagination. And I couldn't have even dreamt of a life that I have. And so actually I'm truly, truly grateful for what did take place in my past to bring me here today.